Well, that's Spanish. Chupacabra.
I know, but we have chupacabras too.
I'm just saying we don't call it the goat sucker.
But that's what it's called.
I knew a goat sucker once. I went to school with him.
You can do many things, but you suck a goat one time, and now all of a sudden you're the goat sucker. God damn it.
All right. When Grandpa came back, there was an old woman with him. She introduced herself as Kason and handed me a small crumpled piece of parchment saying, Here, take Here, take this and hold it. Then she and Grandpa went upstairs to do something. I was left alone in the kitchen with my grandmother again. I needed to go to the toilet. Granny followed me to the bathroom and wouldn't let me shut the door. I was beginning to get really frightened by all this. After a while, Grandpa and Kason took me upstairs and brought me into my bedroom. The windows were covered in newspaper, and lots of ancient runes had been written on them. There were small bowls of salt in all four corners of the room, and a small Buddha figure placed at the center of the room on top of a wooden box. There was also a bright blue bucket. What's the bucket for? I asked.
Well, let me tell you. Pee-pee poo-poo.
Pee-pee poo-poo. That's for your pee and poo. That's literally what it says on this website. It's for your pee and poo, Grandpa replied. Kason sat me down on the bed and said, Soon the sun will be setting. So listen carefully. You must stay in this room until tomorrow morning. You must not come out under any circumstances until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Your grandmother and your grandfather will not speak to you or call you until then. Remember, do not leave the room for any reason until then. I will let your parents know what's going
on. This is where I'm like, all right, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
Don't ever say shit like that to me.
Yeah. They walked out into the hallway, and after saying goodbye to them, I closed the bedroom door and locked it. I turned on the TV and tried to watch, but I was so nervous, and I felt so sick to my stomach I had to pee-pee poo-poo in the bucket. Grandma had left some snacks and rice balls for me, but I couldn't eat them. I felt like I was in prison, and I was very depressed and scared. Very depressed and scared. I lay down on the bed and waited, and before I knew it, I was asleep.
Nothing like a good depression nap.
That is the truth.
That shit really does hit differently. And it's always wonderful.
Yeah, you wake up 7 hours later, and you're like, what happened?
You're like,
you just got a full night's rest.
And you know you're going to get another one.
Yeah, I started the nap at 3 p.m. All right.
When I woke up, it was just after 1 a.m. All of a sudden, I realized that something was tapping on the window. Tap, 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 tap. I felt the blood draining from my face, and my heart skipped a beat. I desperately tried to calm myself down, telling myself it was just the wind playing tricks, or maybe the branches of a tree. I turned up the volume on the TV to drown out the tapping noise. Eventually, it stopped altogether. That was when I heard Grandpa calling me.
You okay in there, Sonny?
You're
scared. You don't have to stay in there all alone. I can come in and keep you company.
Bro, he just wanted to cuddle. I smiled and rushed over to open the door, but then I stopped in my tracks. I had goosebumps all over my body. It sounded like Grandpa's voice, but somehow it was different. I couldn't tell what it was, but I just knew.
What are you doing, Grandpa asked. You can open the door now.
I glanced to my left, and I glanced to my right, and a chill went down my spine. The salt in the bowls was slowly turning black.
I'm going to say grammatical error. The salt in the bowls were slowly turning black.
I don't think so.
The salt in the bowls were slowly turning black, or was slowly turning black?
It was. It would if it was going to be it would have said the salts. You need multiple kinds of salt.
But bowls is plural.
But bowls is in a prepositional phrase.
This is not very riveting content. We need to go back to this. But
salt is the subject, not bowls.
Okay, that's fair. I backed away from the door. My whole body was trembling with fear. I fell to my knees in front of the Buddha statue and clutched the piece of parchment tightly in my hand. I started desperately praying for help. Please save me! Please save me from Hachi Shakusama! I wailed. It said I wailed, so I had to wail. Then I heard the voice outside the door saying,
Bo. 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 Bo.
The tapping on the window started up again. I was overcome by fear, and I crouched there in front of the statue, half crying and half praying for the rest of the night. I felt like it would never end, but eventually it was morning. The salt in all 4 bowls was pitch black. Yeah, that makes sense. It definitely was. You're right.
I know.
I checked my watch. It was 7:30 a.m. I cautiously opened the door. Grandma and Kei-san were standing outside waiting for me. When she saw my face, Grandma burst into tears. I'm so glad you're still alive, she said.
They just left a child alone, and they're like, holy shit, you made it.
Yeah. I went downstairs and was surprised to see my father and mother sitting in the kitchen. Grandpa came in and said, hurry up. We've got to get going.
We went to the front door, and there was a large black van waiting in the driveway. Several men from the village were standing around it, pointing at me and whispering, that's the boy. The van was a 9-seater. This is weird. And they put me in the middle, surrounded by 8 men. Kei-san was in the driver's seat.
Are we sure that they're not on their way to a Jeffrey Epstein party? Blammo!
Ooh, hot topic.
Oh, he didn't commit suicide.
The man on my left looked down at me and said, you've got yourself in quite a predicament. I know you're probably worried. Just keep your head down and your eyes shut. We can't see it, but you can. Don't open your eyes until we got you safely out of here. I don't know why he's a cowboy.
Well, he definitely is. He definitely is a cowboy. There's no doubt in my mind. Grandpa drove in front, and my dad's car was following behind. When everyone was ready, our little convoy started moving. We were going fairly slow, around 20 kilometers per hour, or maybe less. After a while, Kei-san said, this is where it gets hard, and started muttering a prayer under her breath. That was when I heard the voice.
Bo. Bo. Bo.
That's creepy, too. I clutched the parchment.
Wow.
Parchment Kei-san had given me tightly in my hand. I kept my head down, but I peeked outside. I saw a white dress fluttering in the breeze. It was moving along with the van. It was Hachi Shakusama. She was outside the window, but she was keeping pace with us. She's got those real long legs.
That motherfucker can run.
Oh, yeah. Then suddenly she bent down and peered into the van. Oh, my God. I didn't even realize that was the framing of this.
Yeah, she's way taller than the van.
No, I know that. Obviously, I know that. But in my head, the way that I envisioned when I read it the first time, because sometimes I do have a hard time picking up, like, picking up on what I read, like the visuals of it. And so in my head, I was just imagining that she was kind of flying, kind of like Superman, along the side of the vehicle. But can you imagine just seeing these lank-ass arms?
An entire body bending?
Yeah,
and still see into your fucking vehicle.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a nightmare tonight.
Yeah, that's fucking. Honestly, I'm actually like creeped out right now. No! I gasped. The man beside me shouted, "Close your eyes!" I immediately shut my eyes as hard as I could, and I tightened my grip on the piece of parchment. Then the tapping began. Tap, 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 tap. The voice became louder.
Bo. Whoa. It's like that fucking Courage Cowardly Dog shit.
I never watched that show.
Oh, well, never mind. You're not gonna get it. But everybody knows Ramses. That's what it sounds like.
What is Ramses? Can you just tell me? I mean, I might know who it is.
There's a guy that he was like an old Egyptian dude, and he had like this crazy like slab that told like all these plagues and shit. Somebody stole it, and he shows up to their house, and it's like, he's just like standing there. It's a close up on him, and he's like, "Return the slab." But it's like super weird because the show is like animated, but when it shows him, he's claymation, so it like really fucks with you.
Oh, okay. So it's very jarring.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right.
There was a tapping on the windows all around us. All of the men in the van were startled and on edge, muttering nervously to themselves. They couldn't see 8 feet tall, and they couldn't hear her voice, but they could hear her tapping on the windows. Kason started praying louder and louder until she was almost shouting. The tension inside the van was unbearable. After a while, the tapping stopped and the voice disappeared. Kason looked back at us and said, "I think we're safe now." All of the men around me breathed a sigh of relief. The van pulled over to the side of the road and the men got out. They transferred me into my dad's car. My mother held me close and tears were running down her cheeks. Grandpa and my father bowed to the men and they went on their way. Kason came to the window and asked me to show her the piece of parchment she had given me. When I opened my hand, I saw that it had gone completely black.
Okay, so can you explain this part to me? I don't understand that.
That it went black?
Yeah.
I don't know. The salt did it too.
Oh, so that's just like a thing, like in the presence of this evil stuff turns black?
Maybe, man. I don't know.
I'm just asking.
I don't really know how that all works. Is that like a... You know, I'm going to be honest. I don't know.
Fair enough.
I think it's just a weird thing that she does, maybe?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, hold on, I lost my place because I went up to see if we missed something, but
no, it's cool. It says, I think you will be okay now, she said, but just to be sure, hold on to this for a while. She handed me a new piece of parchment. Maybe it's like a signifier that she's near?
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah. After that, we drove straight to the airport, and Grandpa saw us safely on the plane. When we took off, my parents breathed a sigh of relief. My father told me he had heard about 8 feet tall before. Years ago, his friend had been liked by her, and the boy disappeared and was never seen again. My father said there were other people who had been liked by her and lived to tell about it. They all had to leave Japan and settle down in foreign countries. They were never able to go back to their homeland.
That's kind of fucky, honestly.
Yeah. She always chooses children as her victims. They say it's because children are dependent on their parents and family members. This makes them easier to deceive when she poses as their relatives. He said the men in the van were all blood relatives of mine, and that's why they had been sitting all around me and why my father and Grandpa had been driving in front and back. It was all done to try and confuse Hachishaku-sama. It took a while to contact everyone and get them all together, so that was why I had to be confined in a room all night.
He told me that one of the little Jizo statues, the ones that were meant to keep her trapped, had been broken, and that's how she escaped. It gave me the chills. I was glad when we finally got back home. All of this happened more than 10 years ago. I haven't seen my grandparents since then. I haven't been able to so much as set foot in the country. Afterwards, I would call them every few weeks and talk to them on the phone. Over the years, I tried to convince myself that it was just an urban legend, that everything that happened was just some elaborate prank, but sometimes I'm not so sure. My grandfather died 2 years ago. When he was sick, he wouldn't allow me to visit him, and he left strict instructions in his will that I wasn't to attend his funeral. It was all very sad.
My grandmother called a few days ago. She said that she had been diagnosed with cancer. She missed me terribly and wanted to see me one last time before she died. "Are you sure, Grandma?" I asked. "Is it safe?" Ooh, I'm getting chills already. "It's been 10 years, she said. All that happened a long time ago. It's all forgotten. You're all grown up now. I'm sure there won't be a problem." But what about Hachishaku-sama? I said. For a moment, there was silence on the other end of the phone. Then I heard a deep masculine voice saying,
"Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
"Fuck this shit, I'm out." Yeah.
Do you go see your grandma?
Huh?
Do you go see your grandma? If you get that call, do